Alright, what's going on, guys? No Pioneer Sport Cards. Wanted to get this one out. I haven't seen any of these videos on YouTube, so I thought this would be a fun one to jump into. So much talk about F1 that we haven't seen much talk about the F2 Championship. I think there's some decent options here, which is why I really wanted to kind of dive in and discuss this. Because there's, like I just said, a lot of potential here to make some fun plays. I'm going to talk a little bit about F2, and then I'm going to dive into 3 to 4 different names I have on the screen that you can kind of take your own opinions on, see what you like. There's 4 of them, as you can see at the top 4 that I have up there, that I like for different reasons, but I also have them in low risk, medium risk, and high risk, because they're not all equal for that. So, F2 this year, we have seen some pretty surprising results. With Piastri moving out at the end of last year, it was kind of I would say it was kind of open, if you will. There wasn't a really strong favorite. I liked Pourchaire going in the season, but I knew he was young, so it was going to be kind of tough for him. Another one I did like was Drugovich, who was leading the championship, and we're going to touch on him a little bit later. Those are 2 of the ones I really liked. 2 more I really honestly did like was Liam Lawson and Jerry Vips, who are in 4th and ninth. So those are the names that I kind of had my eyes on. Last one I also had my eye on was Logan Sargent, but I wasn't expecting him to win this year. I wanted to kind of see what his progress would be through F2 to see what would go on for the kind of, coming years, if you will. So I wanted to kind of go over some of these drivers and what I think about potentially investing in them. Because there's so much talk about, oh, let me go get Leclerc, let me go get Verstappen, let me go get Hamilton. That these guys are, I wouldn't say flying under the radar, but if you know what you're doing and you have a hunch, you can get in on some of these guys for pretty good prices and hedge your bets. And if one of them hits, you could do pretty well for yourself. First one I have, I consider this the only low risk one, or the lowest risk if you want. There's always be some risk to it, but I have Piastri. I think he's probably the safest you're going to get for F2, being that reserve role and for Alpine. Some of his stuff, going for a decent amount, but not ungodly amount. $400 for a silver refractor. I'm going to guess, I didn't check 130 point. I'm going to guess it's about 200. Refractors are going for cheap. Overall, not a lot of crazy things going on here. Pretty stable market, if you will. So I really do like Piastri for that reason with that reserve role. I think there's greater than 50% chance he's on in F1 next year. Depends who he's going to go for. I strongly am of the opinion that Alonso will be out at the end of this year for them because they want to get Piastri that spot because they don't want to lose him to another team. But, we'll see. I like Piastri. I have a purple checkerboard right now, but I look to move in the future. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with it yet, but as you can see, prices that are not too bad, pretty reasonable all around. And he's my only kind of lower risk. Next one I have at a medium risk, so not quite that low risk, I have is Théo Pourchaire. His stuff is kind of weird. He's in a weird spot in F2 right now because there's not really a certain team that you think he's going to jump into right away. There are quite a few teams where I'm like, there's potential he could go there. And I think that they're like 20 to 30% chance he goes to this team. But, I'm not quite like certain he goes to a team, which is why I kind of have in the middle spots. I think he winds up at some point, especially if he gets one more extra year if Drugovich wins. Because when Drugovich wins, she can't compete anymore. So I think, one more year if he doesn't win, honestly, would probably help him. Because I don't know where he goes. There's talks of him going to Alfa Romeo. I've also seen some really small people think he might go to Aston Martin. I don't really buy that one, but there's a chance that Guan Yu Zhou or Zhou Guan Yu only does 1 year in F1, which is a possibility. So Teo's somebody to look at, or at least keep your eye out for. Maybe not go for him, but keep an eye out to see what's going on with him. Then we have Liam Lawson. I have Liam Lawson in my. I couldn't quite put him in like so I'm gonna say he's high. I think this is a high risk, but also one that could very well pay off for you for how cheap he is. Liam Lawson in the Red Bull program. I could see some funky things going on because you know how Red Bull is. They're always funky with what they do. They might bring up Lawson to F1 just because they want to fast track everybody, push out Yuki or Gas. I don't know why they would do that, but Red Bull is weird with the stuff, so it wouldn't surprise me. But Liam Lawson, pretty cheap stuff. The orange checker for 25 for less than $200. This one's gonna be a pretty cheap thing to go after. You know, if you go after some of these refractors for $1, I think you can do quite well for yourself in the long term. Just how risk adverse or for risk are you? Then last one I have. This is the most like go big or go home you could possibly have in Felipe Dragovic. He's up from 2020, so his product's going to be already high to begin with. But I'll try to sell you on Dragovic, but also why not to go for him. One of the biggest reasons why I think Dragovic has a small spot is his Brazilian connections. Brazil has a huge F1 base. It wouldn't surprise me if a team took a flyer on Dragovic for 1 year to get a nice Brazilian fan base, get some more attention, because teams love doing that. I mean, it just happened with Zhou Guanyu from coming from China last year with getting that huge Chinese bump. It wouldn't surprise me if a team wanted to do that with Brazil because of how many passionate F1 fans are in Brazil. But at the same time, Dragovic is just, I think this is his third year, I believe, third or fourth year in F2. I know last year he was, let's see, I think he was on Prema, then he switched to, I should have looked. I think he switched to M2, but then he went back to Prema this year, I believe. So a lot of team jumping, but he's leading the championship. The big problem I have with him is I just don't see where a spot could possibly open up for him. I don't know where he slides into because all these other drivers have their guys that they're looking at. Williams kind of has, Logan Sargent, Liam Lawson for Red Bull, Teo kind of for that Ferrari-ish, so kind of Alpha, then Piastri for Alpine. And I don't see where he could possibly fit in, to be quite honest. But if you really just want to, shoot for the stars and try to hit, you could go Dragovic. I think this is your worst kind of investment opportunity by far. I think if you're looking for the long shot, you go for Liam Lawson. I think it's just your best bet to go overall. Juri Vips is another possibility. I went Lawson just because he's been slightly better than Vips this year. But, overall, exciting stuff for F2. We've seen a lot of really weird stuff going on in these championships. Last driver I want to shout out as being a big Hail Mary, I didn't even put him on here because it's such a Hail Mary, is Jack Aitken, reserve driver for Williams. Crazier things have happened with Latifi. If Latifi ends up going, I think they go for somebody like Sargent, who's in 6, which I think also is a decent opportunity. But, if they don't think Sargent's running, they might just try to have a lame duck season with Aitken. And who knows, maybe you get into Aitken right now. I haven't checked his prices, but he has to be cheap. He hasn't raced in a little while. He's not even in F2, so a lot of interesting potential in F2. Those are my thoughts. Want to know what you guys' your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments. Hope you guys kind of found this informative. It's kind of fun to talk about F2 with all the talk on F1. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great one. Make some good investments, and I'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye.